My favorite message. She believed she could, so she did. She is me. She is you. Know your powers and know your strengths.
Welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast. It's your girl, Kate Bryan. One Girl Revolution is a multimedia platform and podcast and a nonprofit dedicated to highlighting the stories of inspiring women and girls who are changing the world through their lives. Please subscribe to the One Girl Revolution podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. We're on YouTube at One Girl Revolution, and you can find all of our social media links, videos, podcast episodes, and so much more on our website at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number one, girlrevolution.com. On this week's episode of the One Girl Revolution podcast, I welcome Kymaletha Brown, founder of the Great Divine Center and Goddess Great Maternal Infant Health Program. Kim has dedicated her life to maternal health and wellness, and she is doing so many incredible things to support mothers and their babies. Kim was the first person in her family to experience a natural birth and to breastfeed. Through her own experiences and research, Kim began realizing that there needed to be a more holistic approach, a more holistic focus on the care of mothers and their babies. So that's how she decided to found these two amazing organizations. The Great Divine Center is the first Black-owned women's wellness center in Detroit, and it's a one-stop shop for clinical mental health counseling, dance, yoga, meditation, hypnobirthing, doula support, and so much more. Goddess Great provides home-based childbirth, education, and infant health services for Medicaid-eligible families. These two organizations are dedicated to reducing African American infant and maternal mortality rates. You are going to love Kim, her stories, and her work. So without further ado, here's the amazing Kymaletha Brown. Kim, welcome to the One Girl Revolution podcast.
Hello. Thank you for this opportunity.
I am so excited to have you on to share your story, to share all about the great work that you're doing. But before we get into that, I'd love to ask you, who is a One Girl Revolution in your life? Who's a woman or girl that's inspired you?
So that is a question that I don't get asked often. Specifically a specific woman. I want to say my mom, but then I want to say a lot of other women too. So I'll just say all the women around the world. Because there's no specific person who's done a greater amount of influence in my life than just all of them together. Like my mom, my aunts, my cousins, older cousins, friends, everybody.
A little visitor.
Yes, I did. Can you hold 1 second? Thank you. Yes, he's with me.
That's okay. So yeah, there's so many women, and I know that you're working with women every single day. And so you're getting to meet so many amazing women, and I'm sure that they all touch your life in a special way too.
Yes.
So before we get into the work that you're doing, I would love to rewind and talk a little bit about your life, who you are, where you're from. Can you share just a little bit about your own life?
So I am from Detroit, Michigan. I grew up on the east side. So anywhere like on East Warren, I grew up in the 7 Mile area. I went to DPS schools. I was on a dance team. I played volleyball. I kind of always knew what I wanted to do as a child. Like in 3rd grade, I said I wanted to be an obstetrician. However, I just knew that I wasn't cut out for like science classes and math classes. So I kind of mixed it up as I got older. So it changed to like ultrasound tech. Then it changed to a nurse. And then I'm just like, you know what? Let me just figure out, like zone in on exactly what it is that I want to do. Like I've always felt that I never could fit in one box. So when it was time for me to go to college, I was like, let me do something that's broad so I can just get experience doing whatever it is that I want to do. And I ended up just sticking with social work. But that came from just the ability to always want to help people. Like I've always had a helping spirit, a giving spirit, or wanting to give back. So I just felt like that was the best place for me to be.
I think your story is like so many other women were so fascinating. And so, we kind of go through these different chapters. And I know that you've gone through numerous chapters too, going from social work, and you're also a clinical mental health therapist and a hypnobirthing instructor. How did
Yeah.
you decide you wanted to become a therapist?
So like I said, I was in social work and I did it for maybe like 4 years. But everything about social work was more so giving out resources or doing the work for the clients and for the family. So I wanted to do something different. I started looking into counseling programs and I fell in love with the therapeutic methods, how we subconsciously help clients figure out the answers without giving them the answers. And I felt like that was a more appropriate approach for me and the things that I want to do in life. Because for some reason, social work can sometimes feel like enablers. Like we just constantly giving and giving and giving and giving, and nothing is being returned. So we're doing the work. We're finding the resources. We're calling on behalf of the family. So that's how it was back then, what social work was like DHS workers or family advocates or in that field. But I wanted to do something different. So I started the program. I literally just winged the application for Siena Heights University. I went on my interview and I was just telling my story and telling her the same thing. Like, I want to do more. I want to be able to help people, like walk away from it, knowing that they gained something, knowing that they learned something by themselves and not just me giving them something. So they felt I was a great fit for the program. And when I started it, I did not want to finish. Like, I fell in love with the whole counseling method, the whole program, and I finished in like 2 years. So that's how I got there. Everything else just started aligning. Um, I had just had my son after after I joined the counseling program. And I knew I wanted to do things in the birth world, but I didn't know how I was going to combine all of them, because it's rare to find a therapist that is in birth work. So I'm like, how am I going to make this work? How do I make it fit? How do I make it flow? I didn't want to just specifically do postpartum counseling or prenatal disorders. I wanted to do general counseling. I wanted to be a just therapeutic psychotherapist that just do general disorders. And I want to focus on women as a target market for therapy, but I more so just want, the family system. So I'm open to all clients, male, female, children, and so forth, however you identify. But when I thought about how am I going to combine it, I'm saying I want to do hypnotherapy. I want to do a doula. I want to be a doula. I want to do everything else just so my one client could have a one-stop shop and they don't have to go all around the world to different people for the services they need. So in my mind, I said they'll start with me at pregnancy and I'll follow them throughout their next couple of years in their life, even postpartum or when baby is 5 or if they need therapy at 10. So it's a continuous relationship.
It's a holistic approach. That's what I was so inspired by as I was looking through your website and looking about your background and kind of seeing all the different things. It's so important, especially for women, for all people, but especially for women to have this holistic approach, to mental health. And I think we're starting to realize that more than ever in this day and age of, how birth or postpartum can affect women's mental health, but even like while they're pregnant, different things that are going on with women's bodies. And it's so cool to me, so interesting to me that you're able to really meet that whole woman and help her and walk with her throughout pregnancy and then beyond.
Right. Yeah. And that's the approach that I wanted to take. See, with therapy, a lot of people will get that confused with psychiatrists. that I'm prescribing medication, and I'm not. Therapy is different from psychiatry, but I still wanted to include other methods of therapy. So that's how I opened up the studio for dance, yoga, and meditation. So if you don't feel comfortable doing one-on-one psychotherapy, you are welcome to do dance, yoga, or meditation classes, because I know that that's a form of movement therapy. That's a form of just therapy in general. So you have choices, you have options. And then whenever you do feel comfortable, you can always come over and get clinical mental health counseling.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And every person is different, right? Every person's experience is different. And I did a documentary through One Girl Revolution, and we actually took a film crew into Cook County Jail. And there's a professor that taught a storytelling class, and it was called Storytelling as a Healing Art. And she would use all different types of things: music, dance, vocal exercises, theater, like so many different ways for people to express themselves. And that's so interesting to think about therapy in that way, that all of us, we just want to be heard. We want to be able to share our experiences. We want to be able to work through things. And how can we work through it if we don't know how to talk about it, or if we don't know how to express it? So it's really beautiful that you're offering so many different types of ways that people can express themselves. One thing that I want to mention is you were the first, as I was like reading about your own personal story, and I think this is interesting and kind of connected to what you're doing now. You were the first mother in your family to have a natural birth, and the first mother in your family to breastfeed your son. And so you started doing kind of research, I know, through when you were pregnant, I'm sure, and then after the fact, just about resources and things that were going on with women. Can you talk about that? Like, what made you want to go for a natural birth, and what made it important to you to breastfeed your son?
So this is really, it's not crazy, but it happened in a weird way. I had just graduated in 2016 in December. And then I immediately enrolled in a master's program at Western Michigan in May. And my first class was research methods. And my research paper was on the effects of mindfulness and hypnosis on African American women during pregnancy and labor to reduce anxiety and fears. So we had to choose a topic, and the class came together that mindfulness was the topic. And then we had to create research around mindfulness. So we did a quick thesis search in the database system, and mindfulness kept correlating with birth. So I'm like, okay, let me just do this. I'm African American. I'm curious to know what the statistics are and, how the experiment went. I was not aware that I was pregnant, but I was in this class doing research. And in June, when I turned in my paper, literally 3 days after, I found out I was pregnant. Immediately after I turned in my paper in June, I had to turn in the just the table of contents and all the research articles that I'll be using to do my actual experiment. And when I turned it in, I'm like, wow, I'm actually going to be my own case study. That's how I got the interest in mindfulness and in hypnosis and stuff like that. But then I kept doing more and more research. Now that I'm pregnant and I'm aware that I'm pregnant, I want to actually do this. I want to be a part of it. But breastfeeding came along. My friend had just had her son last year in 2016, and she was trying to breastfeed, but she was having a lot of complications, and she ended up switching to formula. So I had already had just some background knowledge about breastfeeding, and I started doing research with her because I was trying to help her. Like, okay, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. And I found an organization for her to go to, Black Mothers Breastfeeding Association. But she ended up just not going through with it because I get it. It's very difficult trying to breastfeed, go to work, and live for yourself. So ironically, I'm pregnant the next year, and I'm like, I'm gonna make this work. I want to figure it out. I want to do it. And I was like, yeah, mom, did you breastfeed? She's like, no. I'm asking my cousins. They're like, no. I asked my aunts. No, we did not. So I'm like, okay, now I really have to make this work. I really have to figure this out because I want to break this generational curse. I want to be different. I don't want to be like everybody else. I'm doing the research and I'm learning that this is more beneficial for our child's development, for their emotional development, for physical development. I'm learning all the benefits about it. Then I'm doing more research and I'm finding out that Black women are more prone to die during childbirth and labor than now women not of color. So it just, everything to me, it just started resonating like, okay, you have to do something different. You have to break these generational curses. And sure enough, I did exactly what I had planned. Like everything happened the way that I manifested it to be.
Yeah, and it made it so real, I'm sure, as you were walking through it and reading these statistics. And I'm sure it just made your heart drop too. I was reading just on your website, and I know this, we actually had Miss Catherine, who founded Sister Friends, on the podcast before, and she talked a great deal about maternal and infant mortality rates for Black women and babies are more than double than their white counterparts nationwide, which is shocking when you start reading about that. In Detroit, the Black infant mortality rate was 2.3 per 1,000 births in 2019, which is like just like crazy to sit and like read these statistics. And I encourage everybody who's listening to read these statistics. But what I love about Sister Friends and I love about your story and what you're doing is all women need community. And so what Miss Catherine did when she started Sister Friends is she was like, I need to form community around Black women and their newborn babies or Black pregnant women and like help them and just help them like learn how to breastfeed their babies. Because and I think a lot of women in general in this day and age, we don't have our families around us in the same way that former generations did, or we don't have community. Maybe like I lived in DC for a bunch of years and then moved back to Michigan, and thankfully my family's here, but I don't have the same friend contingent, of support system in that way. And so it's so important for us to talk about it. And that's why I really wanted to have you on to obviously share about the work that you're doing. But I encourage everybody to be aware of what's going on and figure out ways that they can contribute to society and support our sisters. Check out One Girl Revolution's YouTube channel and hit subscribe for more podcast episodes, short documentaries, and other video content. The Girl Inside features the powerful story of a professor who teaches a life-changing storytelling class to incarcerated women at Cook County Jail. The second documentary from One Girl Revolution is coming soon, so make sure that you're the first to know by subscribing to One Girl Revolution on YouTube.
Yeah. And I actually signed up for Sister Friends when I was pregnant too. And I had a lovely sister friend. Her name was Miss Trudy. And she was there every single step of the way until her passing. She passed last year. Nope, the year before last. And she was really like, she would call my son her guardian angel.
Aww.
Oh, they were so sweet together. It was, that's a great program. I always recommend everybody to go through Sister Friends because I gained a lot from them as well.
Yeah.
I actually, and then about more so, like you said, we want to give back to our community. After I had my son, my same friend that tried to breastfeed, she got pregnant again. And she is now 14 months of exclusively breastfeeding her daughter. And then my older sister, she recently had a baby too. And my niece is 9 months and my sister is exclusively breastfeeding her. So I see the impact I'm making on the people around me because I was so consistent and determined to actually breastfeed and educate the community, my family, so they could follow the same path, and it actually worked.
Yeah, I want to transition over to the Great Divine Center because you talked a little bit about what you're doing, but how did the Great Divine Center spark? Like, I'm always curious, you're doing all this amazing work, you're taking care of your son, you're going from one thing to another, going back to school, all the different things are going on in your life. What was the suddenly moment that made you say, like, all the stars aligned and you were like, this is what I need to do? How did the Great Divine Center spark?
Well, honestly, I would say it came about from me just becoming a single parent. I talk about this openly all the time that it's just me and his father is incarcerated. So when I was thinking of all the odds that would be against me trying to be a 9 to 5 working mom with a child and the type of parenting that I want to do, I don't want to have to call off work to go to one of his field trips. I want to be able to just cancel out the day and be like, I'm supporting you for your field trip. I don't want work to come in between me being a parent because I want to be that full time, my son with me type parent. It may be like overbearing or overprotective, but it's my first child. And I think it's healthy for the both of us to go through life together because of our circumstances. So I wanted to have a job where I could take my son with me if need be. Like today is a perfect example. I can pick him up from school because he's sick and I don't have to call off work. I can still try to make work happen. So the Great Divine Center was just an idea. I said, I want to become an entrepreneur because my first year with him, I was working and it was just difficult. Like returning to work after having a baby, I quit 2 jobs because I did not want to be away from him. So I'm like, I need to figure something out. I found a business program while I was in my master's program. And I had already known that I was not going to work for somebody after I graduated with my master's. But everybody in my class kept saying like, oh, you need the experience, you need the experience. I'm like, I'm going to have an internship in a practical. That's my experience. And I can do a private practice. There's many people out here who have private practices. And I kept telling everybody, mine is not just going to be a private practice. It's going to be a center. I want to open a center. All my classmates was looking at me like I was crazy. Like, huh? Like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm opening a center. I want to open a community center. So in this moment, I was exclusively breastfeeding. I was in a master's program where I went to school twice a week. I was in an entrepreneurship program where I went to class weekly for 21 weeks. And I made it work because I was determined to open up this center. I didn't have a name for it back then, but I just knew all the things that I needed to accomplish by the time I was ready to open my studio. And the only thing I had at the time was my degree, my master's. The only thing that I was banking on and knew that I was about to have was the degree. So I had to look for doula programs. I had to look for hypnobirthing programs because these are the things that I had when I was pregnant. So I'm like, I want to be able to give these things to the community because people don't know about this. People don't know about doulas. People don't know what hypnobirthing is. And when I did research on hypnobirthing institutes, I realized that I was going to be the second certified Black certified hypnobirthing educator in Michigan. So I'm like, yeah, I need to get certified in this. And I just kept finding everything I wanted to do. And I got certified as a doula first, and then the hypnobirthing came next. I had graduated already with my master's. I had finished a program at Prosper Us for entrepreneurship. I wrote my business plan. I had the breastfeeding program together. I wrote out every program that I wanted to offer. And when I presented it to the funders, they was eager to support me. And it just kept happening. It kept aligning. So that is how it came about. It started as just a simple thought of me wanting to build a breastfeeding community. And it just spiraled into everything else because I knew that I needed to do more in order to set me and my son up for success where I don't have to return to a 9 to 5.
Yeah. Well, and I love your story because it's so many, especially women's stories where you kind of get this seed planted, or I talk about it as like a little heart project. You know, even One Girl Revolution sparked out of a little heart project. I didn't really know what the future would hold, but I just started pulling the thread, and one by one things started falling into place and things started happening. And then I was meeting different people, get connected with women like yourself. And I know that that was the same for you with the Great Divine Center, that it was like the pieces started getting placed. So I want to talk about the great work that you're doing. I know you kind of rattled off a few things earlier, but you have therapy available, your doulas, dance, yoga, meditation, hypnobirthing. Talk to me about the center, all of your programming and everything that you offer.
Okay. So first is clinical mental health counseling. I want this to be my focus, my primary area of work. And it's been going well. I really, really love doing therapy. And I have a few consistent clients, and I love doing that work. So here it's a two-sided building. On the office side, I have my office where I do my counseling. I do my labor and birth consultations for doula work. And the doula program, it is a sliding fee scale, or sometimes I'll offer free community doula work, or I offer payment plans, but it's community doula. It's a community doula program. So if you can't afford the doulas around here, you can always come to the Great Divine Center and I can figure something out just so you can get the care that you need during your pregnancy. And then I also have a nonprofit organization called God is Great. This program is literally, I winged it the same time where I was going into school and entrepreneurship program. I was doing an application to become a certified maternal infant health program for my nonprofit. I was doing like 20 different things at one time. And an application process, if you don't pass the application, you don't even get to train with the state. You don't get to do anything. That is, you're out and you got to wait 18 months to apply again to become one of these organizations. I had no experience in writing those applications. I had no idea how to even start an MIHP, but it got approved. So then I went to the next step and they like, you need to have a list of things. And I'm like, how am I going to get this? I wish I would have known that I needed to have this stuff prior. So I just went on Amazon. It's like a list of protocols they have, like lock cabinets, filing folders, and all. You needed to have your organization set up within like the next 2 months when you do your next part of the application process. So I'm just doing it and it's just getting applied, getting approved. And they like, you need to have your workers too, your social worker and your registered nurse. I didn't have no workers. So I went on Indeed in like 2 weeks. I hired my workers for my nonprofit. So again, I had to make space for them here too, because they work for, we contract with the state and we take moms who's pregnant and have Medicaid, is Medicaid eligible, and we sign them up and they get additional prenatal support on top of their regular appointments. And we provide diapers, wipes, clothes, pack and plays, car seats, whatever it is that they need. And they visit with the nurse or the registered nurse monthly. So that's in my second office. That program is ran out of the Great Divine Center. So if anybody needs some prenatal services and they have Medicaid, they can always just stop here at the office because I'm here. And then on the other side, I have the studio where I have a yoga instructor who comes in and teaches yoga on Monday and Wednesdays. Wednesdays is for children. Mondays is for adults. Dance starts in April. She will be starting with teens, so 13 to 18 years old. And she's teaching on Fridays and Saturdays. In May, it'll be another dance class on Thursdays. So monthly on Thursdays from 6 for the next 4 to 5 months. And then meditation is incorporated with the yoga classes. I think I touched base. Nope. So next month in April, I'll be teaching. After I got my certification, I wrote a grant to get 2 other women of color to become certified. So it's not 2 of us no more, it's 4 of us. That's hypnobirthing instructors in Michigan that are Black. After I got them certified, they began teaching last year. I had one of them teach 6 classes for me, and then the other one she taught one. So we're starting those back up April. They'll be monthly. I'm teaching the first round of classes. So in April, I have hypnobirthing on Sundays from 3 to 6. And then it'll be monthly for the remainder of the year. And we'll rotate who's teaching which month. So all together, all 3 of us will be trying to get it out to the community. Like, hey, take this class. And it's usually offered, I'll say, between $200 to $375. That's how much the hypnobirthing educators are charging for the class. We're only doing it for $50 because, again, everything that I do, I want it to be affordable and community based. So that's that in April. And then in my spare time that I have, I offer placenta encapsulation services. I just did 2 of them last month, but I don't do them. I did 6 and no, I did 8 in total last year. That is just something that I offer, to my doula clients that want that service. That's who usually come to me for placenta encapsulations. But if somebody else in the community want it, if I'm open and I have the availability, I don't mind doing their placenta encapsulations as well.
If you're enjoying this episode of the One Girl Revolution podcast, please leave us a review and share this with your friends and family. The One Girl Revolution podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to the podcast right now. Please subscribe, leave us a review, and share. Kim, I don't know how you have extra time. Like, I don't know how you sleep with all the different things that you have running. And it's so beautiful just to hear about all the opportunities that you're opening up for other women and for kids, like all the cool programs that you have going on. And I'm glad you talked about the nonprofit, because that's obviously very important to One Girl Revolution. I always love when women are innovating and finding ways that they can give back to the community and make resources really available, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, that, those resources are available. I would love, Kim, because this podcast is all about stories. So I would love to hear maybe a couple of stories, if you don't mind sharing, of some of your clients or people that have been helped either through the Great Divine Center or through your nonprofit.
So I'll talk about one of my, I have 2 favorite births, and I know I shouldn't have favorites, but these are literally my 2 favorite births. And they hired me for doula work, hypnobirthing, and placenta encapsulation services. So they got the whole package. One of them came to me at 32 weeks at the very, very end of her pregnancy. And she's like, I want to have a VBAC. So you hired me in your 3rd trimester and you're trying for a VBAC. And this is your 3rd birth and your first 2 were cesareans. In my mind, I already knew that her physician was saying, this is going to be an automatic VBAC. You're going to have another cesarean, but not a VBAC. You're going to have another cesarean. But she's like, no, I don't want it. I want a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. So I told her, I said, this is going to be a lot of work. We're at 32 weeks. Your doctor is strictly cesarean. So we have to, prepare. We have to get a plan in place so you can have your vaginal birth, the birth that you desire. So she's like, okay, I'm ready. I'll do it. I'll do whatever I got to do, because I don't want another cesarean. I want to experience natural birth. So she signed up for hypnobirthing immediately. Like, the class was the next day. And she attended all 5 sessions on time, asking questions. She was very involved, very engaged. She was doing the work. And I always tell people, you can't just hire a doula if you're not going to do the work. You have to be willing to do your part and contribute to the whole relationship. This is a contract that we're getting into, and I can't do the work for you. And she was eager. She was happy to do it, happy to learn. And her and her partner, they both were participating. So after hypnobirthing, we're like in week 36. I've squoze in 3 prenatal visits between 32 and 36 weeks. And I went to her house. We're doing the different positions. We're practicing. and we just talking, and I'm giving her all the information she need. When I gave her homework, like do your birth plan, we went through it. She went through it by herself. And then our next visit, we went through it together. She asked me questions wherever she needs some clarity. It was really, really smooth. And I felt very strong that she was going to get the birth that she wanted, because she wanted it. Like, that's all she seen. That was her plan. It was no plan B. So when she actually went into labor, it was like 3:00 in the morning. She called and she's like, I don't mean to wake you, but my water just broke. And I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to come out? Are you managing it? How's your breathing? We went through the whole intake, and she like, oh, I should be fine. She called me back in like 30 minutes. I was like, nope, I think you should come. So I went over there, and we stayed at her house for maybe like another 30, 40 minutes. And we're doing different laboring positions, and she's managing it so well. No screaming, very calm, very peaceful, using the hypnobirthing techniques, utilizing her breath. And she like, okay, they're getting closer. And we had to make she had to make the decision on what birthing facility she was going to, because her doctor was literally, if you come here, we're prepping you for a cesarean. It's no, I don't feel comfortable doing anything else. So she went to the hospital that was closer to her home. And they checked her in. They let her do her trial of labor with a vaginal for a VBAC. And it went well. She was managing her nerves. They were all receptive to her plan. They listened to her. They let her do what they felt her body was capable of doing, which is birthing naturally. So I'll say maybe like 4 or 5 hours went by, and she gave a natural birth. It was beautiful. She managed it like a champion. I was very, very proud of her. She advocated for herself going in. She advocated for herself with picking her birth facility. She played like she did exactly what she wanted to do. And that is why I do what I do. Like, I want to empower you. We're empowering each other, because you got exactly what you planned, what we worked hard for, and you didn't let no one steer you away from your goal, your end goal. So that was my beautiful doula client. She got placenta encapsulations, and she aced her hypnobirthing classes. So that is my favorite VBAC story. It was very, very emotional for the both of us, because that was my first VBAC birth. And to see her just enter like, no, I need this, I need that. It was just like, okay, she's working the room. I did what I had to do on my part. Whenever she needed clarity, I would step in and I would get my clarity on what was going on. The nurse would give her side, and she'll make the decision that was best for her and what she felt comfortable with. And it was no issues. Everything went exactly the way she wanted it. No epidural and no pain medicine. She didn't have an IV, nothing. Just natural birth in the hospital. And that's rare that you see that.
Yeah, that's the power of doulas, and you really empower women to make the decisions that they want. My mom was a doula for many years, and she tells stories about that, how oftentimes her job was just to kind of create moments for the mom to figure out exactly what she wanted to do in that situation, and even to kind of talk through with some clarity, like, this is what's going on. This is my recommendation as a doula. This is what I've seen done in the past. And it really just empowers women to make the decision, not to act out of fear. It's got to be so difficult in those moments, making the right decision, or just having the moment. Back to your discussion about mindfulness, like calming your mind down to actually make the decision that you want, or doing the thing that you want to do, what's best for you and your baby. And so really to create those spaces, I think, is so important.
Yeah, it's better for our moms when we are able to talk through it and give different perspectives, and just to educate them on all their options versus, doctors and nurses coming in and telling them their option, what they think is best. You have to have someone there that could piggyback off what they said and give you different options, different perspectives, and their input. However, I always tell my clients, you have to make the decision that you'll be comfortable with whatever the consequences are. So make sure you make an informed, safe, and comfortable position. If you feel uncomfortable or you feel confused or you indecisive, then give yourself some time to process it. And I always tell them, utilize asking for time, tell them when they come in and they give you whatever next step they think you should take, always ask for time so you could process it. And she was utilizing everything that I taught her in hypnobirthing. I didn't have to remind her, how to breathe or what to say. She just knew it from the hypnobirthing class.
Yeah, the work that you're doing is so important and so critical. And that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, just to share about your work. And I'm so excited for people to check out the Great Divine Center and see what you guys have going on and hopefully get involved. Anybody who's in the Metro Detroit area obviously can reach out to you. I'd love to know what's on the horizon. I know you're doing so many different things and you probably feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose most days, Kim, but what's next for the Great Divine Center and what are some things that you have on the horizon?
Next, I am doing, did I mention I'm doing monthly community health fairs?
Oh,
I
awesome.
think this is my next step for the community. I see this being bigger than me, being bigger than what it already is. So monthly, I've partnered with different mental health organizations, different community action agencies. I have Wayne Metro, DWIN, the community dental clinic, and a few other organizations. And monthly, we meet up here at the space to provide resources to the community. And that is, rental assistance, utility assistance, mental health resources. Oh, also Matrix will be out doing early Head Start enrollments. We'll have the dental clinic here giving out free toothbrushes, toothpaste, floss, and getting people to make dentist appointments. We also have a tax preparer here on site, and we'll be doing food distribution monthly for the remainder of the year from now to December, because everything in me wants to give back. I always want to give while I'm receiving, because I have my doula clients, I have my therapy clients, I have my placenta encapsulation, the hypnobirthing clients, but I also still like to do stuff for free, affordable for the community. So that's my way of giving back these monthly community health fairs.
And it's all interconnected too, right? Like even everything that you're doing, it's women are fascinating beings, but all human beings, we're fascinating creatures. And there are so many things that we need on a daily basis, especially people here in the city. There are so many things and, it's all interconnected. So if you can't put food on your table, of course, your mental health is going to be out of whack. And so what you're really providing is this holistic approach to the human beings in the community. And I just love so much what you're doing, Kim. I'm so curious, if you could get to the very root of why you do what you do, you're doing so many different things, you're serving people. What would you say that the root of everything that you're doing is? Where does that come from?
The root of what I'm doing, I would say it's a calling, because I never seen me being in this space. I knew what I wanted to do. I always had the passion for helping the community, giving back, the passion for labor and birth. I've always had these passions, but I never knew what my purpose was. So the root of all of this is literally divine purpose. That's how I have the Great Divine Center, because this is all great God's work. It's above me. I'm not doing the work for me. I'm doing my calling. I'm doing my purpose. I'm walking in purpose. So that would be my root. This is where, I was birthed for. My seed that I'm planting is bigger than me and what I want in life. This is not, I never expected to be here.
Yeah, well, you even look at all the things in your life too that aligned, and even you being pregnant with your son and doing this research and writing that paper. I mean, everything, I'm just a firm believer that everything happens for a reason, and everything, the puzzle pieces kind of fall into place in perfect timing, and we find our purpose as we oftentimes just continue putting one puzzle piece at a time into this puzzle. And you're just doing such incredible work through the nonprofit and through the Great Divine Center. What can people do to support your work with the Great Divine Center and the nonprofit? Also, what can they do in their own communities to emulate the work that you're doing? So to support their sisters and support women who are either pregnant or who might be in need during these times.
Or I'll answer the second question first. For other organizations that do community work or just for the general population, residents in their community, I think being more educated on a lot of different options that we have as a community could help us get farther in life as human beings. So I would recommend just researching options before actually making choices, making sure you have all the information you need to live the best life that you desire. So I always tell people, even if you don't get my services, even if you don't hire a doula, please do your research. Even if you don't want therapy, do your research on coping skills that can help you get through whatever you're getting through. Find somebody that you could communicate to about what you're going through. So just coming together will make a huge difference in where we are today. So getting that education, going to community groups, finding people that you can talk to that actually helps. And the first question, I don't remember, what was the first question?
What can people do to support your work? Yeah.
So I guess participating, letting people know that I exist. That's the best support that I need right now. Is just getting the organization out there and referring people to the center, a center that supports them in every area of life. That follow me on social media, of course, staying updated on the events or participating in them. Like I said, yoga is coming up, dance is coming up, hypnobirthing is next month as well, and monthly community health fairs. So it's a lot of options here for you guys to support, participate in.
Well, and we will be sure to promote everything that you have going on. And I'm so excited to stay in touch with you and follow everything that you're doing. And I know that all of our listeners are really going to benefit from following you. And I always tell people that the easiest way that you can support anything, and it's free, is to follow on social media and share your posts. And if you know somebody in Detroit, maybe you're not even in Detroit and you're listening to this podcast, but you definitely know somebody who's connected to the city, and you can always share this information about the Great Divine Center and Kim and the great work that she's doing with anybody you know. So I hope that everything just continues to grow for you. I'm so excited to be connected with you. And Kim, before I let you go, I always end this podcast on one question. So I'd like to ask you, if you could leave women and girls around the world with one message, what would it be?
My favorite message. She believed she could, so she did. She is me. She is you. Know your powers and know your strengths.
So good. So good. I love it so much. And I'm just so grateful to be connected with you. Let's please stay in touch. And I look forward to, hopefully we'll get to collaborate on something at some point, because I feel like we're so aligned in all the work that we're doing.
Yes, we could definitely collaborate on some things. I'm looking for partnerships, collaborations, just to do more.
Yeah. And that's a shout out to anybody who wants to collaborate with Kim and what she's doing. Reach out to them, but I will be sure to post all of your social media links, your website, every way that people can get in touch with you. But Kim, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and thank you for all the incredible work that you do.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at One Girl Revo. That's the number one girl REVO. And you can find more information on One Girl Revolution at onegirlrevolution.com. That's the number one girlrevolution.com.